Dimensional analysis, metric prefixes. So at the beginning of the workbook, you'll see a lot of different conversions. And then you'll see, right, the US system, and you also see the metric system. So it kind of gives you all of this really clearly. But I think it's also good to see it in a table like this. So to kind of understand, we have a metric prefix. So what happens is we have the prefix, and then you have the base unit, right? So the prefix can come before, say, so our base units, we'll go to here real quick. We'll say meters, which is our distance, or liters, which is our volume, or we can have grams, which is going to be our mass. You can even have seconds, right? We've heard of milliseconds before. So to kind of like look at this, so what happens is we have the prefix, right? So it's the thing that goes before. So a lot of times, right, we've seen centimeter, right? So we have centi, which is our prefix, and then we have the meter. And so we just combine those two together to get centimeter. So it's just one word, right? So this kind of gives us an understanding of how small or large our unit is, like our number or value that we have based upon our prefix. Now, we also have seen the symbols, right? So we have symbols, which are all these different kinds. So rather than putting centimeter, we might just write cm, which has our symbol, and then meter, which is just m. So that's how it can break down. Then we have this thing called the multiplier. So it kind of means like we have a base unit, and if you go above, it means that we're getting larger in our units. If you go below, it's going to get smaller, right? So we need so if we go down, we need 10 decimeters, which is equal to 1 meter. Or if you keep going down, we need 100 centimeters to 1 meter, right? Then we go down to here, we need 1,000 millimeters to equal 1 meter. So that's what that means when we kind of go down by the multiplier. So this breaks down, right? Deci means we have 10. Instead of just 1, we broke it down into, like, say, 10 dimes. Or if you have a centi, like centi, that means we're breaking down into smaller units. So, like, say we have $1, now we have 100 pennies. So that's kind of how we can kind of think of it. It's a much smaller unit. Then as we go above, right, so we have, I'm just going to erase this. So let's pick one here. So let's say we have a decameter. So we have 1 decameter, which is then equal to 10 meters. So it means that now our meters are the smaller unit. As we go up, this expresses a larger value. So now let's look at some examples. So example 1, how many meters are in a kilometer? Well, let's go back. Well, we're looking for a kilometer. So meter is our base unit. Kilo is our prefix. So if we see kilo, we look at 1,000. So what does that really mean though? If the multiplier is 1,000, it means that we have to have 1,000 meters to equal 1 kilometer. So the kilometer is much larger. And that's it. There's 1,000 meters in a kilometer. So that's how we can read the table that way. Let's look at another example. Example 2. How many centiliters are in 1 liter? Well, let's go back. Now, if we look at centi, right? Centi is smaller than our base unit, so that means we're going to have a lot more centimeters in 1 meter. So if you kind of look above, so if you have anything above it, we're going to have a lot more meters in that thing. Below it, we're going to have a lot more of this, anything in this unit into 1 meter. So if we think about it like that, so we have to have 1 liter, and then how many centiliters? Well, if you think about it, right, centi, which is like a century, which is 100, we look at this, it means that we're going to have 100 centiliters. So this is a little bit harder to read in terms of how many are in the other one. But if you think about it, right, if you have 0.1, that means we're breaking it up into tenths. If we go down one more, that means we're breaking it up into hundredths. So like 1 centiliter is 1 over 100 meters. So, example 2, 1 liter, there's 100 centiliters. Example 3, how many bytes are in 1 megabyte? So this is something we see like on our phones, like how much storage do we have, like how much do apps require. So how many bytes are in a megabyte? Well, if we look on our table, let's get rid of this, we see mega is right here, which is a big M, right? We've definitely have seen MB before, like especially on our phones. So if we look at megabyte, we have 1,000,000. So that means there is 1,000,000 bytes, which is equal to 1 megabyte. So you can see why we don't want to write 1,000,000, or we could just write 1 MB. This is a lot easier to represent 1,000,000 bytes. But this means the same thing, where we have 1,000,000 bytes, or we can have 1 megabyte. This mega stands for 1,000,000 here. Now let's look at another example. Example 4. What's the prefix for 1,000? So it's kind of like if we were to have the prefix before a thing. If we wanted to represent like 1,000, let's go back. What would that be? Well, that would actually be back to our first example. It's the kilo. The kilo represents 1,000. Now, go back, we would say kilo. Kilo means 1,000. So that would be our prefix.